The ability to make wise choices is the most valuable skill a person can develop. Greetings of this pleasant morning to honorable guests, professors, and student participants. On behalf of the Department of English, Patrician College of Arts and Science, I welcome you all to this webinar on Mastering Business Storytelling. As we gather virtually for this amazing event, let's begin by thanking Almighty God for His innumerable blessings and supplicate for His grace for the success of this event. I request Ansi Rashma from First MA English Literature to lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are grateful for your abundant blessings. Thank you for allowing us today to meet and share our knowledge and time with one another in this seminar. Dear God, we stand before you in humble prayer before we start with this webinar. We realize that without your blessings, we would not be able to succeed with the plans we have for this day. May you extend your divine wisdom to our speakers so that they would be able to impart effectively the God-given knowledge to all of us. May they be blessed as they continue to bring their expertise to people who need them. Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this day to ask for your blessings and help as we are gathered together. We pray for your guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our career. Bless the participant as well so that they would be able to glean the vital information from this webinar. May you bestow your blessing upon this seminar so that we may go out and spread what we learn in the spirit of your love and generosity. May we realize that this webinar should glorify your name. Amen.
Thank you, Ansi, for making the moment spiritual. Good company, good ideas, and good welcome can make good people. To welcome this amazing gathering of intellectuals, I request Mrs. Mohanapriya N., Assistant Professor, Department of English, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to begin the session with a beautiful quotation. Sometimes what you want isn't always what you get, but in the end, what you get is so much better than what you wanted. On behalf of Patrician College of Arts and Science and the Department of English, it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome our resource persons of the day, Mr. Ashik Peter, Digital Marketing Specialist, Davis Index, and our proud alumnus, Mr. Christian Srinivasan, Chief Content Consultant, Northstar NCC. I really thank both of them for accepting our invitation and willing to spare your precious time with us. Thank you, Ashik, and thank you, Mr. Kristen. I'm grateful to our Reverend Brother Rabhiraj, Director and Secretary, Dr. Fatima Vasant, Academic Director, Dr. Usha George, Principal, Dr. Geeta Rufus, and Dr. Meena, Vice Principals, for their constant support and guidance that they rendered to organize such a wonderful webinar today. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the participants, both the students as well as faculty members from the various colleges across the city and the state. I'm really excited to listen to our resource persons, and I hope every one of us will get loaded of information and knowledge about the business storytelling. I once again welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your gracious words of welcome. We have two distinguished guests in our midst today, Mr. Ashik Peter and Mr. Christian Srinivasan. I request Mrs. Lakshmi Kumari Crossbill, Head, Department of English, to acquaint us more with today's speakers. Over to you, Lakshmi ma'am.
Thank you, Jitisha. It's an endearing moment to introduce the two vibrant and young resource persons of the national webinar, Mastering Business Storytelling, one an alumnus. Mr. J. Ashik Peter is a digital marketing specialist at Davis Index and also the chief consultant and founder, Northstar MCC. His wide exposure at this age comes from his successful stint as a management graduate from NIT Karnataka. His key takeaways from his grooming includes a passion for user-centric marketing. With over 3 years of experience in so few years in the areas of digital marketing strategy, analytics, and content management, he strives to make a positive impact in business he is associated with. His professional portfolio is wide and varied, including B2B businesses, SaaS, hospitality, FMCG, automobile industries, and in the field of finance as well. He went on to be the founder of Northstar when he was just a final year at college with a single notion to help SMEs afford premier marketing consulting solutions. This success is telling because he has been able to generate a good revenue even during the COVID lockdown. Being a skilled orator and an effective communicator, he mentors and trains upcoming executives, professionals, and the student community as well in the areas of marketing, business storytelling, and the art of effective communication. I'm happy to introduce our second resource person, Mr. Kristen Jude Srinivasan, who was the best outgoing alumnus of Patrician College in 2018 and the department secretary anchoring all events. He's a technical writer and the PMO analyst with SureCom and chief content consultant and co-founder at Northstar, which Ashik had founded. His undergraduate background in English and his postgraduate stint as a mass communication student stood him on good stead as he moved to a new field specializing in the technical function as PMO analyst and technical writer handling compliance policy and user experience delivery. The 3 years of content writing experience has grown his expertise catering to famous industries worldwide, including the Harley-Davidson in the automobile industry, Hari Dental in the healthcare industry, banking, finance industries, petroleum, food, educational field, as well as in IIT Madras and SRM, which are premier institutions in the city, and other startups, that is B2B and B2C companies that need to evolve their businesses with unique stories and values to market. He is passionate to extend his skill as a chief content writer at Northstar, Marcom, taking this opportunity to leverage and introduce variations in content writing for his clientele and bring about a win-win situation in business. Thank you, Mr. J. Ashik Peter and Mr. Kristen Jude Srinivasan for joining us today and for consenting to be the resource person readily. Welcome back to Patrician and our warmest regards to all. Thank you, Jitisha.
Thank you, ma'am. We are all the more eager to listen to the resource persons. Without much further ado, I request Mr. Ashik Peter, Digital Marketing Specialist at Davis Index, and Mr. Kristen Jude Srinivasan, Chief Content Consultant at Northstar MCC, to address the gathering. Over to you.
Good morning, one and all. I hope I'm audible to everyone present here. So I thank everyone who has joined us for today's discussion, especially the faculty at the department, my faculty at Patrician College, who has given me this opportunity to be here and present this amazing topic to a wonderful set of audience and crowd today. So I had started my career in content writing ever since my UG degree in Patrician College itself, where I used to intern for a few startup marketing agencies. And then my career grew in the line of content writing and content strategy, and then led to business development. And today in this point, I would thank everyone for my successful journey. I have found a niche for myself and I've identified my skill. And I'm sure at the end of this webinar, this topic would maybe give you an insight in your career path. And so without any further delay, let's get into the topic, and let's discuss and have a great time. So just let me share my screen. All right. All right. So getting to the topic. So right here, so today what we are going to present is the skill and the art of business storytelling. So you guys must be really familiar with the term of what is storytelling. I encourage people to maybe stop in between and ask us during the session. But if you want to enjoy the good experience of how every narrative is going place during the slide, so please reserve your questions and your questions and your queries towards the end of the program. So I would just like to know if you can see my screen so that I could proceed with the presentation.
Yes, Chris.
All right. Okay, great. So, so let's start with how we talk about stories in our day-to-day life. So we as human beings have this communication, and through communication, we lead stories without our knowledge itself. So basically, when you start a conversation with your friends or your family, it there are about 95% chances that those dialogues or those narratives that you speak lead to a story, and that tries to stir the intents of the interest of your listeners. So you might not be aware of it, but ultimately, when you try to address a problem and you tell them about the situation you are in, for example, you may tell stories in your personal life. Now, today we are drawing the attention to a professional background of where stories are involved in business. So to give you a familiarity in your uh, workplace or your business environment, you might tell or maybe talk about or discuss an incident about an interview where you go and tell your friend, hey, look what happened, I went for the interview and this is what happened, and that ultimately leads to a story. And when such stories are discussed or exchanged to the listener, he is able to identify a problem, and you may even express a situation at your workplace where I got up this morning and I looked at my schedule, and you know what, the mails were so hectic this morning, and I didn't know how to schedule my day. I already had a lot of backlog in my work. So keeping all these expressions and these sense of uh, uh, stories that you try to tell with your listeners is ultimately where you try to convey a business message to your person in a professional life. So getting to what exactly storytelling is, it's nothing but a story structure used in your business or working environment for the purpose of internal or external communication that requires collaboration or marketing. All these things can be achieved with business storytelling. So to understand it better, why we need stories in business, here are three ways how we can categorize the necessary factors that play a crucial part in business storytelling. So when it comes to stories actually convey emotions, right? So every time you narrate a story to your audience, there is this emotional impact that is getting delivered, and your personal experience is shared to the listener. So when it comes to business, not many people will like to hear just about how much of profit you turned over the last month, and just a bar number of figures would not be such a sweet thing to listen to during a conversation. So a fact that has a fact that shows that how storytelling, business storytelling invokes messages in our consciousness, and our brain processes it 60 times faster when compared to facts or just words. So this is why the first element of storytelling always involves emotions. And the second thing here we are trying to say is that stories offer values and beliefs to the audience. So when I mean exactly about your value and beliefs, for a person who is an entrepreneur or a person who wants to put out a message to his audience of why he believes in his service or his product, will automatically reflect an image and create a sense of belief, and they would be able, and your audience would be able to resonate and understand what exactly you are trying to offer, and that would be valued, rather than just saying, hey, look, you know what, I have this product, and this is where I am in the market, and like the sheep in the crowd, you are just gonna be one among the people standing, one among, not one, like a person in a crowd, you will just be one among the crowd. So to stand out, you need to have your particular beliefs, your particular values of what exactly you're offering to market. And that's why the second point is very crucial of why we need to have our values and why we need to convey our beliefs to the audience. And the third point is a very, 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 very crucial point, because every time you tell a story, there needs to be a sense of purpose. And whenever you always communicate your interests to a person, there is this opinion that you're trying to create, and that opinion needs to drive to action. So when it comes to business, you need to have a purposeful story, a motive to take action, basically. So when your audiences, when you address your business model to your audience, you not only create opinions and you do not only create a purpose to your audience. For example, you're a person who holds a company with about 1,000 employees, and instead of just communicating to the external, that is your audiences, when your beliefs and when your purpose is a whole, and when it is expressed and it is reaching the correct audiences, the internal, that is the people who are working for you, the employees, will also find purpose and also be motivated to empower themselves and engage better with the company. So this is why storytelling in business is one of the major factors, and how you can have an extra escalation in your business model. So keeping this in mind, we will proceed to the next, where there are a few famous businesses that you and I are very familiar today. So taking a summary of the three pictures that you see today, that is the Zoom app, the Airbnb, and the very famous Apple uh, Apple technology software and product, you can come to understand that today these businesses are in the commercial value. But I'm talking about in before 2010, before Apple and before Airbnb, they changed the market, because instead of just selling a product or selling their service to the audiences, they were actually giving a better experience to their buyers and to their customers. So when we look at how Airbnb started off as a simple uh, uh, apartment hospitality center where only breakfast and bed was offered, that gave a very homely feeling to the customers, and that welcomed them. And that purpose of having a very standing out from the rest of the hospitalities or hotels that you and I are very familiar is why their success is and why they stand unique in the business. Same as Apple today. The Apple products you see are mostly technology oriented, and a lot of a lot of specifications have been added to their products. But before, Steve Jobs invented the Apple computer with the notion of making people's lives much easier, and this was his unique selling point when they wanted to kickstart and make their benchmark in the business. So it was never about the product. It is about how they gave a life-changing experience to their customers. So keeping all these incidents and what exactly storytelling is, we are Ashik Peter, who is our resource person and our digital marketing expert. Today will convey what exactly is the nuances of business storytelling and how everything takes place. So over to you, Ashik. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you, the faculty of Patrician College, for that wonderful introduction. And hey, good morning, everyone. I know it's a Saturday morning, and you would be having better things to do. And but trust me, for the next 45 minutes, there's not going to be much of numbers. It's going to be fun, and you would be happy that you would learn a skill that you would be using throughout your professional journey. And before I could start off, I would like to tell the faculty, though I may not be a Patrician College alumni, I'm a Patrician. I did my schooling at St. Patrick's. So, so yes. So let me begin. Kristen, can we move on to the next slide? Yes. So why do we tell stories? Now, this is a analogy I've created past the time. If you could notice the picture, we have been telling stories since the cave days, prehistoric. And if you could see, the caves of, various places. So one such cave I've been to is Bora, and there is a cave 150 kilometers outside Chennai where we still have inscriptions. So people used to tell stories, and right now, where do we see stories? Digital medium. Digital medium is the place and the mind to read, experience, and tell stories. Not exactly in that same order. So yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. Why? The question happens, right? So why do we tell stories? Take religion and take mythology, take any such historic events. We would be telling stories one way or the other. Now, if you could see this slide, I'm a huge superhero buff. I still go to comic cons, and my parents are not proud of it. So, but one thing is that if you would notice, this analogy I've taken is one of my very favorite superhero. It's Superman. He has one particular ability called super hearing. So basically, what happens is, out of the 1,000 other noises, he filters out one distress call. And that is exactly what I mean by retention in storytelling. So out of the 1,000 other noises that we have, when I could switch on the news or when I could read the digital content, there are, huge stories. Some might be relevant, some might be irrelevant, some is utter trash. Uh, so as a person, and let me just take off business for a while, and let us say personal branding. As a person, if you want to stand out, how would you impact the attention span? Because with each decade the attention span reduces. We are a consultancy, we do websites, and the attention span of a website is less than 8 seconds. So with an attention span where I'm playing with 8 seconds as a number, how do I get to retain my audience? So that is a very critical issue, right? So my audience would not give a damn if I could just tell them numbers, if I could just tell them we are better than the competitors. No, they want something else. They want a narrative that they could experience. And by audience here, I'm not just meaning consumeristic perspective. I'm also giving equal regards to professional personal relationship, which I would get on with the further part of the slides. Next slide, please, Kristen. Yes. And I'm not here bluffing these out or making hypotheses on assumptions. I'm going to delve into the fact that whatever I'm trying to put forth today is based on science, and even better, it is based on neuroscience. Now, there's a part of this study called game theory, which I think would be too much for today. We can have it on a separate day. But humans are highly rational and irrational at the same time. We try to call ourselves rational people, but we are irrational. So what is the science of storytelling is basically something Aristotle told 2,500 years ago, and this is one of my favorite constructs for public speaking or debating or even writing reports. So my report would have ethos, pathos, and logos. It should have credibility to what you say. It should have emotion. It should have logic. So when you could switch on the TV, you could only find segmented versions of this. When you get on the news debate that we all love very much, there would be one stance which would only incite emotions. There would be one stance which would the news reporter would be inciting ethos. But of late, I cannot see a news report which has logos on it. So coming to the fact, in business storytelling, it should have these three. And there are very few businesses which get this across, and some businesses get this right, and it gets retained for a long time. Next slide, please, Chris. All right. So let's talk about neuroscience here. In a human individual, now these three, what you see on screen, the cortisol, dopamine, and oxytocin, it is hormones. So all these three hormones are necessary to make ourselves human beings. And why are marketeers and why are business specialists and why are strategists out there specific on these three hormones is that we are trying to entice these three hormones to get the desired behavioral reaction. So to make things simpler, I've put across everyday examples. So cortisol is basically an attention seeker. When you try to quit your website, or when you try to close a book, or when you try to exit from something that you've been into, you can see a pop-up coming there, right? Get 20% off before you exit. Why should you waste it? They got your attention. They are trying to hold you there for some time. If I could take it into your college life, uh, what happens when your maths or any other subjects which you don't like uh, comes in and says, hey, finish this period and I'll give you a PE period. So that's basically retaining your attention, and so yes, cortisol and dopamine. Dopamine is your GPS crash cards. I don't think I have much better examples because it gives you pleasure. And oxytocin is your life-saving hormone, which prevents you, avoids you from doing stuff that would cause self-injury or injury to any of the moral principles that you stand for. Now, why am I blabbering about these? When you take a story, it should have either a segmented or a mixture of an approach, which should in indice and produce these hormones. That's what we strive for. Next slide, please, Kristen. All right. So yes, I know I've given an analogy of Superman, but frankly, DC Universe have not come up with an excellent cinematic universe yet. So I've taken an analogy of Marvel here. So types of stories. So when you tell a story, although a movie may consist of all these different factors, when you tell a story which is purpose driven, it should be either one of this. I'll tell you why. Because yes, I think the pictures are pretty self-explanatory, and I don't think I should explain on this further. So when I'm talking about a story of crime, Kristen, next slide, please. Now, I think the faculties should be leaving a sigh of relief. What is this guy doing with cartoons and animes? So anyway, so let us get back to the business story. And types of stories is the triumph, tragedy, tension, transition. Now, the reason I've taken Geo as a triumph is that it would be a triumphant news for either Akash Ambani or the family of Ambani when they notice that there is a 70% penetration of Geo among users. So when they draft their advertisement materials or their internal communication materials, even if you could mail Geo right now, their footer will have a business story to it. We are one of the best human-oriented organizations. So they only have a story of triumph. They need not have a story of tragedy with them. And story of tragedy, yes, if you're a journalist and if you have owned any stocks with Kingfisher, then Kingfisher is a story of tragedy. And then tension. Now, if you go to the streets of Mumbai and if you notice any of these people standing in front of the BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, you would only hear stories of tension because the gold rate and the fluctuating, rate of stocks would be a cause for concern for them. So if you're a journalist out there, if you're a business storyteller out there who is from a fintech background, you would only hear stories of tension, not entirely triumphant, not entirely tragedy. And then, of course, stories of transition. I'm very sure the advertisements of the stories of transition with Vodafone and Idea would be a business story by itself. So, because the advertisement was partly on the network coverage and partly on the very fact that Idea's original advertisement was meant to be, that is, providing internet services for education. These guys predicted internet services for education through their ads a decade before than what we are doing right now. So these are all, examples of the kind of business stories that would be told. Next slide, please, Kristen. Yes. Business stories have to be authentic and purpose driven, because any other story that is not authentic would lose out on that charisma, would lose out on the belief that my leadership storytelling has purpose in it, has truth in it. If not, I do not support my company. If there are any HR person out here or the faculties out here would be very familiar with this term called organizational citizenship behavior, OCB. So business storytelling drives OCB to the fact that it is purpose driven, because OCB without driving purpose is insignificant, right? And the reason I'm not getting business storytelling to marketing and sales is that, yes, it can be applied to even finance for that fact. But right here, we're all students. And I want this to be applied to your everyday life, right from your clubs, right from your part-time work environment, right from your small communities that you're a part of. I would like to master y'all to master this skill, because content writing is a thing of the past. Now everyone here is a content creator and a writer, but how do you write actual content? How do you segment it? How do you make those narratives? That I would teach you on the next slide. Kristen, next slide, please. Yes. Structuring the narratives. Now, all of us can be content creators and writers, but if you don't know what the narratives are, then it would be a big failure, because the kind of retention that you would like to do with the audiences uh, would not get enough traction. So next slide, please. So narratives is based on beginning, middle, and end, just like every other story. Now, when we go to the beginning, the initial part of the story, yeah. So it has a set of formula. If you could think back to the stories that you've heard from childhood and the stories that you retain, definitely not the maths formulas, because maths formulas, the way they teach here, do not have a specific set of structure to it, because they give you the questions, so there's no story to it. In fact, it should be the other way around. They should give you the answers and make you form the question, because that would take you through a journey of how why is y there, why is x there. So let me get into the literary part of it. So your story should have a date, a time, and a place. Now, without these three, set principles in the beginning of the story, it cannot be a story. Let it be linear or non-linear. I'm not talking about the movie stories. Even movies, even if it's non-linear in timeline, the beginning should always have where and like what's happening. So if you could remember your grandmother stories, it will be like once upon a time in a land far, far away. If you notice that, once upon a time is there in a land which is far, far away. A place is there. Now, if you could go to the stories of kings in a land ruled by King Akbar, uh, 1600, AD, it has a time and a phase. Or when you tell your personal story, hey, you know what? When I was 16 years of age at my hometown. So you're telling a phase in life and a place in life. So you have to start a story with a date, or a time or phase plus place. Next slide, please. Now, this is where things get trickier. When we start writing a blog, we would be very excited to start the beginning bit of it, but then somewhere down the middle, we fizz out on the content. Now, this is where you start structuring your narrative. This is where it is very important as well. And this, this inverted pyramid that you see is what me and the other storytellers out there use to construct the middle bit of the story to hold the attention. Who, what, when, and where. Again, reiterate it in the middle part. And what do you want to convey? What is the major information that you would want to convey? Jot it down. And what is the cause of that important information? The causal, information, we call it. And if there are any data scientists out here, this is also the structure for data storytelling. So yes. So what is the important information? What is the cause of it? And then the insignificant details. The reason this triangle is important is because there is a concept called ATL communication and BTL communication. Either ways, we have character limit, we have word limit. We just cannot be bluffing the stories out there with lot of insignificant details, because your retention span is very low. You have to understand, if there are any marketeers out there, if any student marketeers out there, if you could go to your Facebook or LinkedIn or Google page, you have your character limit. This is very important and crucial to frame the story with the given character limit. So basically, if you want to prioritize it, this is how we have to prioritize it. Next slide, please. Yes, let me show you with an example itself. I'm going to read this out, all right? So at 7:30 last Wednesday night, I was sitting on the couch when I heard a large crash. We live approximately 150 meters from a main intersection, and when I looked out of my window, I could see that two cars has collided. I ran to the crash and I arrived first at the scene. About 3 minutes later, about 2 minutes after me, other neighbors start to arrive. I pause here. If I could randomly pick an audience member, I'm very sure nothing would be retained. I'll tell you why. In this, 6-sentence paragraph here, you could see a lot of numbers. Can you go to the next slide, please, Kristen? Yes. So last Wednesday night, I was sitting on my couch and I heard a large crash. I lived really close to a major intersection, and when I looked out of the window, I could see two cars had collided. I ran to the scene and I was the first to arrive, with neighbors arriving within minutes. Now, what is the difference between what I read before and what I read now? And I'm very sure if I pick a random audience now, they would tell it is just because that there is a lot of data, a lot of irrelevant data on the picture, on the content before. And here you go, on your face, data scientist out there. Not every time you put a data on the screen, it need not necessarily be relevant. All right. Now, this is where, when you have too much information, how do you put forth across? Because by the end of this content, I would want to convey that I heard a large crash last Wednesday. Two cars have collided, and I was the first to come, and neighbors came behind me. This is all I want to convey, because to the people who I convey, they don't really need to give a damn about what time did it happen, what was the distance between your home, because that's irrelevant, right? That's insignificant. So by this, what I come to say is that just because you have an information overload need not necessarily put forth out there. And the reason I had to take this specific information is that people are using the jargon a lot. Data driven storytelling. What is data driven storytelling? When you are putting forth insignificant information out there. So don't abuse data here. All right. Next slide, please. Yes. Now the end part. So the end would have the bridge, link, and pause. Now, yes, again, I like to reiterate the fact to all the bloggers, to all the speakers out there, to all the storytellers out there, your opening is fantastic. Your story gets fizzed out in the middle and the bottom segments, and very rarely things get good together, and that's when things work. I do this mistake as well. Knowing all these consciously, I do this mistake as well, because somewhere down the line we lose focus of excitement. So it's better if you have this framework and start doing storytelling bit by bit. So the bridge. Now this is where things get interesting in terms of business storytelling concept. Next slide, please, Chris. The bridge is because you're making them remember why you're telling this. Now, this has two benefits. One is you get to reconnect with the audience after the story is over. Second thing is, make sure you've not blabbered too much and you've strayed on the course. We get to see examples of people when they say, this person is very talkative, this person is talks a lot and he doesn't make sense. This is the problem. Even if he forgets to bridge the story to what is he actually trying to say, it gets kaput. Now, the reason I'm taking you this journey across is that I want you to be effective enough. Now, if I'm just doing this session for the sake of it, it wouldn't be, feasible. And when you share your experiences across to some of them, when teachers share it to students, when friends share it to another person, you have to tell the fact that why am I telling this? Because of the fact I'm seeing you experiencing something similar to what I've been through. So this is the reason we actually have people to bridge the storytelling. And the next part is, next slide, please, Kristen. The link. The link is basically a continuity of the action. So instead of me saying my story is action driven, I'm using the word link here because I want to see a definite action being taken post me telling this story. So imagine what we could achieve. Just think of what we can do. So these are phrases that you use to your teammates, that you use to your peers, that you use to your, if you're a leader, you use it to your subordinates. And this can be used in the professional method also. You need not be necessarily a leader to use these words. So post telling the story, imagine what we could do if I could do here with limited resources, and you tell a wonderful story. And imagine what you could do when you know this Abhi right now. So let me put this in this context. So over my 3 years journey, business storytelling, if you could see Google Trends also, this has been a catchphrase since 2020 or since the arrival of COVID. And imagine what you could achieve as a blogger, as a content creator, as a student yourself, when you want to put forth your ideas across, and when you know that there is a definite framework. I know that creativity is a talent. I know that creativity is something that you're born with. But what if you're a logical person and yet you want to work on creativity? It is still possible. You have this kind of framework. You put your best thoughts across. You pull it together. You're still creative enough. So people are not entitled to creativity. We all have sixth sense. So until and unless we have the sixth sense, we are creative enough. The next slide, please, Kristen. Yes, the end is, this is my most favorite part. It doesn't work with written reports, but then it works good with imagine what we have population which lies below 25 years, and then you stop and just nod your head. It allows the audience to grasp the information which you said and retain it, because I really don't want you to say, imagine what you could do with all the information out here. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. So it doesn't give the audience the right time to speaking, teaching, and leadership motivation or in team, personal talks. It wouldn't work for reports. I don't want you to guys to have reports with blank spaces on the page and then go back to your manager and say, hey, you know what, I've attended a storytelling session where the mentor actually said, pause for effect, and I've left 2 blank pages for effect. No, it doesn't work that way. But it would be a bit uncomfortable if you do it initially on speaking, but it works. You would know the awkwardness, when to, really pause and say, thank you so much. Next slide, please, Kristen. Yes. Now, this is not something I want to take slide by slide, because I'm just going to summarize whatever I've told. So the first thing in mastering the process is knowing your audience. By audience here, I'm not coming to the fact it's consumer-based audience. It might be a peer group, it might be the students, it might be the student-teacher relationship. Putting forth across what you want to do by knowing the audience. Define the core of your message, yes, the necessary information, decide the kind of story you want to tell. So if you have the information and if you put a neutral story, it would not entice emotions. So you have to decide if it's a story of transition, success, failure, or confusion, or the tension. Establish your call to action. CTA is call to action. So establish your drive. After listening to your story, what do you want the person to do? Do you want the person to accept what you proposed? Do you want the person to negate what he actually taken into account? Do you want the person to at least remember that, okay, there is this person out here? Now, all of this process is very good for your interviews, your recommendations, your job prospects. And till date, I don't think so I've attended an interview along with 100 or 200 people, for the very fact that I communicate with the kind of company I want to go, and establish a personal story there. Like say, if I'm going to a company XYZ, I would directly approach the HR and say, these are the values that your company stand for, and this is the value I personally like. So I want to be a part of this company. So instead of taking the aptitude, taking one among the 1,000 people attending the interview, where you would be based on your marks, right? You would be analyzed based on your marks. They would not know you for the personal commitment that you would like to have for the company. How many people out here actually give a letter of thanks post the interview? You should do that. That is a story process where you continue your personal relationship with the people. Now, the reason I'm giving you examples of interview is that I cannot be really giving you examples of politics in workplace. I cannot be giving you examples of pitching to venture capitalists, because I think you need a year and a half to experience that. But interviews are something you do every day for your internship and full-time jobs. So that is very important. And if you're an employer out there, if you're a startup enthusiast, make sure when you hire a person or when you're taking interviews, you form a business story there. And yes, choose the medium. The fifth point: not every story can be told the same way. You write across, some you speak, some you write, some you display out there. So make sure you're very careful about the medium you choose. And the next slide, please. Yes. Now, this is not for the students. This is also for a take in everyday life, storytelling and business storytelling. One is teachers. Teachers tell stories every day. Now, I'm not talking about maths and science, but I did remember having a very fantastic chemistry teacher during my school. And he used to tell chemistry, organic chemistry, through stories. And I'm sure that anyone under his class would still remember the benzene rings formula, because he told a story. He told an amazing story that people actually scored marks in organic chemistry. If there are any science students, you would be puzzled that we scored a lot in organic chemistry rather inorganic chemistry. So that is the kind of story he used to tell. And if you're a speaker, if you're a debater, storytelling works. If you're a writer, storytelling works. If you're a parent, I know I've not reached that stage of life, but I do have some facts that support the statement that you tell stories to your kids, or at least my brother or your sisters. things get retained a lot. The moral value gets retained a lot. Uh, a lot of religious books out there imbibe moral values through storytelling. And of course, leaders. If you're a leader out there, there is a separate topic called leadership storytelling. And we do that, to engage your teammates, because sometimes financial component is just not equal enough, especially during COVID. How can you retain or motivate your employee just by giving salary? There should be something driving them, and that is the story that you tell within your company, the leadership storytelling. All right. These are different departments, these are different topics within storytelling. One aspect is, of course, the business storytelling. Oh my God, I overlooked completely. The A stands for Google AdWords. So any marketeers out there, business storytelling is very important for brand as well as internal storytelling as well. And yes, the constraint that comes with marketeers is that you pay per word for the story. So you have to be very careful in narrating the story. I think that reverse inverted pyramid would be helpful. And yes, I think I've come to the conclusion of what I want to communicate and what are the steps to master and how to construct the narratives. And I would like the audiences to please ask me any question with regards to storytelling and business storytelling. Now, I may not promise you that I would know the answers for all the questions that you're asking, but as much as I know, I would answer it. And if I don't know something, I would go back, research on it, and please shoot out a mail or connect me on LinkedIn. I would be very happy to answer it. So, ma'am, is the mic on for the audiences to communicate, or can they use the chat? So how is it going to work?
The audience can either use chat or they can raise hand. There is a raise hand option there. You can use it, and then we'll unmute you.
All right. So, so please go ahead and yes, please shoot out your questions if you have it. Okay, okay. I got a question: how to use storytelling in an interview. Very good. So, one of the very, one question the HR people love so much is that, tell me about yourself. All right. So that is a question which looks very simple, which looks very, like a cute sheep or a cute kitten on a rainy day, but it stumps you. It is like a Yorker ball bowled by Natarajan. So that is where you structure yourself. Now, see, if someone asks me, tell me about yourself in an interview, uh, all right, because other times when someone asks me, who are you, what is your purpose in life, that is a completely different question. But when someone asks me, what, like, tell me about yourself in an interview, identify the audience. What kind of interview are you talking about? Are you talking about a job interview? Are you talking about a PR interview? Is it some press related interview? Now, since the question is from you, I assume that this is a job related interview, all right? So the person is a HR. Now comes the tricky part. You should never tell who am I on the perspective of yourself. Now, if it's a finance related company, if it's a marketing related company, know which industry sector that you're actually applying for. Now, if it's a finance related company and you're being interviewed for a content writer, tell them who you are in a perspective that, say, I'm a person who loves to narrate and visualize stories on finance. I'm a person who loves to know what is the causal effects. Why is the stock going up and down? And it's all started from a very young age. And this is the reason I got graduated from this school. And this is the reason my marks are high. And if your marks are low, this is, I was not probably interested in the course I took. And this was the reason my CGPA was low. But then I compensated it, doing other projects, relate it across. Make sure you know which company you're going through and relate it from the HR perspective. And this is also for the marketeers out there. Never design a product and message it just because you have it. Know who's using it, know who's hearing your story, and then craft the story uh, to make them understand that that is what they want to hear. Never tell a story that you want to tell. I hope I've answered that question. So how to use storytelling in a business meeting for upcoming entrepreneurs? All right. I think Tristan covered this in the first part of the presentation where he said convey your values. Now, I assume that when you say that business meeting for upcoming entrepreneurs, I'm assuming that you're talking about venture capitalists, right? Now, this might get tricky because in the boardroom, you would have a CFO, CEO, CMO, and other executives. So you would not have a person from one particular department there. You would have a person from finance who knows nothing about marketing. You would have a CEO who would want more of a data perspective, and a CMO, and sometimes you would even have a CIO, Chief Information Officer. When a Chief Information Officer sits on a session, it would be really a pain because all he would want is data, data, data. So make sure your story uh, is a mix of data, is a mix of you know values, is a mix of finance. uh, that is a challenging bit, and that is a separate topic by itself. But then if you follow this framework, it should be good to go. So hope that answers your question. Let me move on to the next question. In storytelling, we have to use time and place. Yes, of course. The more real the story is, the more purpose driven it is. Hence, it would drive results. I cannot there what is data driven storytelling? And yes, hey, data driven storytelling is a topic on its own, and it is just not mean median mode. I come from an analytics background, and my specialization is marketing and analytics. uh, it is just not about mean, median, and mode. I would not like to say this is out of cleaning the data, processing the data, and analyzing it. For the sake of audience here, I'm going to reduce the data talks here. But at the end of the day, data-driven storytelling is when you process what is data. Data is just raw numbers. What is information? The things that you process from data make it information, and how do you tell it for the layman? Because when you're presenting your data, you would not be presenting for CIO, you would be presenting it for the board and normal consumers. All right. And data is manipulated. So when I say Dettol can kill 99% of germs, if I'm a competitor, I would even say Dettol is ineffective against a significant percentage of germs. I would not use my numbers there because 1% is a significant percentage, right? So that is a separate session of its own. So I'm sorry, I have to stop it because of the other audience's sake. What type of content should be a part of storytelling? What type of content? No. What type of story? So content is, it breaks the language barriers. I might be telling a story in English, Tamil, Hindi, French, Japanese. So it doesn't really matter what type of uh, content by means of language, but what type of story that you say defines storytelling. Uh, Sir, please don't call me sir. Story is a powerful tool, and how can we apply it to make better presentation? Very good. And let me just move on to the next question. How can you control realistically while telling a story? Okay, and then the compliments. Thank you so much. Both of the questions are interrelated. Uh, with regards to presentations, yes, instead of making the reporting format, you can do a presentation having a story where you have the head, body, and tail. And in terms of being realistic, that is what you strive for, right? Uh, to make the story as real as possible. Because we're not talking about fiction here. And I'm so sorry, I'm not a fan of non-fiction books either, because I'm an avid reader of Indian or mythological fiction. But again, non-fiction, I'm not getting to the genre of writing non-fiction books because it is my personal bias that I don't like it. But need not necessarily say, I think Kristen is a huge fan of non-fiction books. Kristen, I think you would answer this question better. How to make it realistic?
So how so as I'm just seeing the question right now. So he's asked like how much control can we have realistically while telling stories. So when you convey certain incidents in your basically non-fiction is your experiences and what you try to convey in your day to day, or maybe from an event that you related from your past sessions or something. So there needs to be a bit of realistic facts, and your information conveyed needs to be to exact situations that or plans that you have executed. And only if you have such personal experiences, it comes under the scenario of non-fiction particularly. So and he says that how can a storytelling storytelling is a powerful tool, and how can we apply it better for presentations. So when you present and when you want to have realistic facts there, only the story, the narrative of it can be a bit fictitious, but the present in terms of presenting your data, or in terms of talking about your personal experience, you need to have a sense of reality over here. It can't be like fairy tales. You know what, I went from Chidambaram to maybe to another place using Harry Potter's magic broom. So that is not something that people would probably believe. So your realistic sense of how exactly that you were put in that situation, and how you use your personal experience to an advantage of conveying it in a fictitious form. So I think that is what I could answer to exactly how much of information you need, reality information you need to control in terms of your presentation. So back to Ashik for the next
Yeah,
question.
that that sums up. Um, Ma'am, is it okay if I could take some more questions if they have, or are we having time constraints?
Coming? Yes, sir, please.
All right, all right. Thank you. Yes. One more thing. I am not fan of Sir, because call me Peter. Anyone on the chat box also, Ashik or Peter, anything would work. Could you suggest some books to improve our storytelling and narration? Listen, now business storytelling is a skill that you could even put on your resume. My resume has it. All right. So and it depends on the person's choices, because every day I deal with logic that my book reading habits become fiction mythology. That is a place I get lost to, because I see the news every day, I study every day, I'm looking at data analytics every day, looking at dashboards every day, so I deal with logic. So fiction keeps me keeps my creative juices flowing. uh, so when I'm talking about books to read for storytelling, no, I'm not going to recommend any books for storytelling. I'm so sorry. But if you want to practice storytelling, take your newspaper. There are different forms of writing, I suppose: journalistic, narrative, serious, and expository. Yes. So take news and start writing. So reading wouldn't actually help. Writing would help. Start writing that. If you are a storyteller, form a story out of the news. By that way, I think you do two things. One is you get general knowledge, and the second thing is you start having that writing habit. You start telling better stories, because when you speak, I can excuse you, or you can excuse me for the grammar, because I'm very sure over the last 30 minutes I've made at least 100 grammar mistakes, and that can be excused. But when you're writing, your grammar is very important. Any language, I'm talking irrespective of the language, all right? So please write. Please have the habit of writing. Blogging, it's free. Blogging is free. LinkedIn Pulse is free. So yes, that is my answer. And I'm sorry I couldn't recommend any books. All right. So how can we make more, sir, please? How can we make concrete details more presentable in statistics? Yes, again, it is data, right? Statistics, that is very good. Because there is again a huge difference between data and data science and statistics. My brother is a statistician, and is manipulatable. Tell 50%, I would tell 50%. If my coaxin's success rate is 70%, and if I'm a competitor, I would say coaxin's death rate is 30%. All right. So I hope you get the gist of what I'm coming to. It is all, you can play with numbers. And any cancer studies you see, even Maggie, when they say there is iron percentage at Maggie, do you know everything around us has iron percentage? So how would you manipulate the data? So going back to your question, all right. So the concrete details more presentable. Please go back to your objective. Now, I think this goes back to another topic called research methodology, which is a separate study of its own. Go back to why are you doing the story, and then support it with documents. And I'm sure of all the audience out here, there would be a lot of consultants. And one golden rule of consultant is that when you make a statement, support it with data. So data is a supporting document. Data by itself is not a statement. I hope that statement is clear. Uh, how to enhance resume with storytelling? Uh, Ma'am, I see a lot of questions with interviews and resumes on storytelling now. Uh, Listen, people. Now, I know why are you all worried about uh, resumes and interviews, because of the fact it's COVID, and I completely empathize that you guys are facing challenges with job seeking, interview seeking. One thing is that uh, don't let your resume not represent you as a person. All right. Now, I can take a separate session on resume building techniques or interview on storytelling, but just don't stop there. Let your work speak for itself. Again, there are about 1.5 lakh graduates out there. So if you're just going to push your work on resume, it's not going to happen. It's going to be, the probability of it is is 1 divided by the number of people that you're competing with. So 1 in a lakh. All right. So please be confident enough and try to apply this framework which I've given on your resume. All right. That is all I could do. I could say for now. All right. Make sure your most important information is there and back it up with data. That's all. Right. Uh, so yeah, and I'm sorry for all the people who ask questions about resume building and interview storytelling. All right. So I think it's a different message. It's a different session altogether. Can we use storytelling for UI and UX? Yes. Yes, of course. It is a huge part of growth marketing, and storytelling is we have something called heuristic analysis. So user-based analysis for the beta versions, and it's a direct question. I don't think so it's visible for everyone. So can we use storytelling for UI and UX? Yes, you should use storytelling for UI and UX. Little more complex methods are used in storytelling, where you identify user behavioral patterns, the heat map on your demos. So yes, I think I have 2 more minutes. I can take one last question. Post that, we can close up. And I think my LinkedIn is available for everyone. My email is available for everyone. So please make use of it. I would be happy to help you in whatever way I know. So, ma'am, if that's all, can we close the session?
Lakshmi ma'am?
Yes, Trijisha, we can proceed.
So thank you, Mr. Ashik and Kristen, for patiently answering all our queries. And the art and science of storytelling and business tales, it's exciting. And we have learned a lot today. So now we have come to the end of today's webinar. And surely saying thank you is good spirituality. And there is always something to be thankful for, to be grateful for. So now I request Ms. Nivedita, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jitesha. When it comes to life, the critical thing is whether you take things for granted or you take them with gratitude. On this note, a very good afternoon to one and all present here. I deem it a great pleasure to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. First and foremost, I thank God Almighty for His blessings and making this event possible. I place on record my sincere gratitude to the resource persons of the day, Mr. Ashik Peter and Mr. Kristen Jude Srinivasan, for making the session more interesting and making the participants to think out of the box. It is indeed a great pleasure having you here, and thank you for accepting our invite and gracing the occasion. At the outset, I would like to thank our Reverend Brother Dr. R.O.K. Raj for his immense contribution, our Academic Director Dr. Fatima Wesson, and our Madam Principal Dr. Usha George for their constant support and their valuable suggestions towards us. I would like to thank our Vice Principals of both Shift 1 and 2, Dr. R.O.K. Mary, Geeta Rufus, and Dr. Meena for their constant guidance. I thank Mrs. Mohana Priya, Assistant Professor, Department of English, for welcoming the gathering. I extend my thanks to our head of the department, Mrs. Lakshmi Kumari Crosswell, for introducing the resource persons of the day. A big thanks to the organizing committee, headed by Mr. Dharmender, Assistant Professor, and Mrs. Maria Benita Fernando, Assistant Professor, Department of English. Special mentions to Mr. Prithvi Raj Kumar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, for his technical support. I thank Jitesha of STEMA for hosting the event as MC. Last but not the least, I thank our entire department for their contribution and participants for their contribution for cooperation and making the event a grand success. Once again, thank you all and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You have done a wonderful job thanking everyone. I thank all the participants who have stayed till the end, and I believe the webinar will prove useful to all of you. Please find the feedback form link in the chat section and give your valuable feedback, and kindly fill it to receive your e-certificates. And please check the promotions or spam folder in case you are unable to find the certificate. So thank you. See you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.